So the puppet master just revealed his fear, and that's Barack Obama emerged from the shadows, warning about a rising wave of authoritarianism, while his entire network faces justice for the biggest political crime in American history. Letitia James has been indicted, James Comey is under fire, and the architects of Crossfire Hurricane are finally meeting accountability. And Obama's panicked because the machine he built to destroy Trump is being dismantled piece by piece, and his people weaponize the FBI, the CIA, and the Department of Justice for political persecution. Now they're learning what real justice looks like. And even Michael Cohen admits what's coming. The deep state's day of reckoning has arrived, and their godfather is screaming about democracy. And while his empire burns, watch closely. So gold has gone mainstream. You're seeing it everywhere, and prices keep climbing. Every day, more and more Americans are catching on to the power of gold. But how do you actually take advantage of it? And how do you invest in a way that's safe, simple, and built for the long run? And that's where Noble Gold Investment comes in. Noble Gold specialists are trained to help investors like you go from confused to confident, from wondering what's next, knowing exactly what to do. So whether you're looking to roll over an old 401k into a gold IRA, or you want physical coins and bars delivered right to your home, Noble Gold makes the process simple, safe, and stress-free. And you're going to get that step-by-step guidance, transparent pricing, and U.S.-based service from a team that's handled over $2.5 billion in precious metal transactions. With Noble Gold Investments, protecting and growing your wealth isn't just their job, it's their commitment. So visit nextnewsgold.com today to claim your free wealth protection kit. Again, that's nextnewsgold.com. Noble Gold, helping you build a stronger future. So the walls are closing in on Obama's deep state, and the Godfather himself is panicking. So watch him emerge from his foundation fortress to warn about authoritarianism, while his own people face justice for the real coup against America. Check this out.
I've become increasingly concerned about the rising wave of authoritarianism sweeping the globe. We're seeing politicians target civil society, undermine freedom of the press, weaponize the justice system, and no one is being spared. Even countries that thought they were immune from wholesale assaults on democracy now understand we're all part of this struggle.
Weaponize the justice system. That's rich coming from the same guy who turned the FBI into his personal hit squad against Trump. And those dominoes started falling with Letitia James. The woman who campaigned on destroying Trump just got indicted for mortgage fraud. Watch her desperate press conference where she plays the victim card, quoting scripture. The terror in her eyes tells a real story, and it's beautiful. Take a look.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He's forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost. The president's actions are a grave violation of our constitutional order and have drawn sharp criticism from members of both parties. His decision to fire a United States attorney who refused to bring charges against me and replace them with someone who is blindly loyal not to the law.
Why does she have her church voice on? Does it sound like she has her church voice on? Let me know in the comments. It sounds like she's preaching to the room, like we need to stop these people from doing their bad things or whatever she's doing. It's not working for you, Letitia. You're a liar.
But to the president is antithetical to the bedrock principles of our country. This is the time for leaders on both sides of the aisle to speak out against this blatant perversion of our system of justice. I stand strongly behind my office's litigation against the Trump Organization. We conducted a 2-year investigation based on the facts and evidence.
Facts and evidence, guys. Yeah, it's all BS. Come on.
Not politics. Judges have upheld the trial court's finding that Donald Trump, his company, and his 2 sons are liable to fraud. I'm a proud woman of faith, and I know that faith and fear cannot share the same space.
Yeah, but you guys shared the same cabin with your prosecutor guy for a couple weekends that you lied about in court. But, you could share that with whatever you're about to say.
And so today, I'm not fearful. I'm fearless. And as my faith teaches me, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. We will fight these business charges aggressively, and my office will continue to fiercely protect New Yorkers and their rights. And I will continue to do my job.
Oh, those whispers. When she goes to the whisper thing, it's so weird. And she said, "No weapon formed against me shall prosper." She's quoting Isaiah while facing federal charges. That's not faith, guys. That is fear. And CNN rushed to her defense, and Jeffrey Toobin actually said the quiet part out loud. His argument was stunning. Just because she's politically targeted Trump doesn't mean she should face consequences for breaking the law. Watch this literal insanity. Take a look.
According to PolitiFact, the day after she was elected in 2018, Letitia James was asked by a community activist if she was going to sue President Trump, and she replied, quote, "Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally." I mean, that's not a great look for somebody who has just been elected or just been campaigning, who hasn't even looked, I guess, deeply at any evidence.
Well, we live in a system where attorneys general and district attorneys in
You got Adam Kinzinger on there. You already know this is going to be horrible. I hate that guy.
Well, I mean, it's a bizarre case in many respects. First of all, it's incredibly small potatoes. This is a house that was purchased for $137,000 in 2020.
So it doesn't matter how big the crime is, right? So he's saying, oh, it's not even a big deal that she committed mortgage fraud, not once but twice, and she lied on documents. And they're saying that's not that big of a deal. People go to jail for that every single day. Every person watching this will go to jail if they did that. But because she's a prosecutor, she gets away with it?
A year when the average house in America was sold for $383,000. So any mortgage, any insurance on a house of that value is going to be very small, and in ordinary circumstances wouldn't draw the attention of the Department of Justice.
But she still committed fraud. But it won't draw the Department of Justice. She committed fraud. It's a lie. She did it. It doesn't matter.
But more importantly, what is so chilling about this case is that ever since Watergate, presidents have imposed on themselves the rule that they do not interfere in criminal prosecution, much less demand them. But here you have a demanded prosecution, and one that the career people in the Eastern District of Virginia thought was an unworthy case. That's a really chilling example of how the criminal justice system is not supposed to work. Just because she made inappropriate comments, that doesn't mean she should get indicted for fraud years later. I mean, we're not supposed to live in a system of that kind of tit for tat. Criminal cases are supposed to stand or fall on their own.
This woman campaigned for years about sending Trump to jail. That was her whole campaign promise. That doesn't matter what it is, we'll find this guy liable for it, and we'll get him in jail. And he said just because she made inappropriate comments doesn't mean she should get indicted years later. They're literally arguing Democrats are above the law. And Vice President J.D. Vance destroyed their entire narrative with, simple facts. And Letitia James committed mortgage fraud. The evidence is clear. The law is the law, period. Watch him explain what real justice looks like. Take a look.
Letitia James was indicted in a left-leaning part of our country, a part that voted very heavily against Donald J. Trump for the crime of mortgage fraud. When I read the indictment, when I read the facts in the case, I see a person who committed mortgage fraud. Now,
they said the same thing about when Trump was indicted. Oh, he was indicted by his peers. He was indicted in an he had 12 people. It's the same process. Now they're saying it's corrupt. It's insane.
Of course, the jury is going to decide whether she ultimately committed a crime. We don't try her. The administration doesn't try her. A judge tries the case, and the jury decides whether she's ultimately guilty. That is what is going to determine whether she goes to prison. I think we let the facts drive this. And George, that's what we've tried to do in the administration's Department of Justice. We've asked ourselves, has a person violated the law? And if that person has violated the law, then we decide to prosecute. That's what the Department of Justice should do. It didn't do that under Joe Biden's administration. It does under Donald Trump's.
So he said, we've asked ourselves, has a person violated the law? If they have, we prosecute them. No political calculations, just justice. Then came the bombshell. Even Michael Cohen, Trump's former fixer, attorney guy, whatever, turned enemy, went on MSNBC and admitted what everybody knows is coming. His words sent shockwaves through the panel. Watch.
He does want to see accountability. There's no doubt about that. Do I believe, for example, that Tish James will be held accountable? Absolutely. I said it on your show last time. Do I think James Comey will be held accountable? Absolutely. You know, and I know everybody attacks Lindsay Halligan. Oh, she's a former beauty queen and she doesn't have prosecutorial experience. It doesn't matter. She has the power of government. You see, remember something.
But she doesn't even seem to have the backing of career prosecutors who are still working alongside her. Is it not a little concerning to you that they don't want to appear with her, put their names next to this stuff?
Not in the slightest. The documents will speak for themselves, and I'm certain that they have the documents that they need. I said it on a different show, in a different program, that I believe a first law student can actually take these cases to full trial and be successful. Just think about Tish James for a second. When you guys had asked me why I believe Tish James is next and why I believe she'll be held accountable. She's the chief law enforcement agent here in the state of New York. And what did she do? She went after Trump for what? For misstatements to a bank and banking fraud. Well, isn't that exactly what they're charging her now with? The same exact facts?
Not really.
It's exactly the same
facts.
I'm sorry?
She had evidence. In fact, I mean, there's a whole case, right? Also, one for a reason.
And they will have a case against her once Lindsay Halligan brings it to a...
Trump valued his properties, and the banks agreed with the valuation on the properties, and then they prosecuted him for fraud, which makes no sense. She faked her mortgage papers, said she lived somewhere where she didn't, so she can get a tax discount. It's completely different, but essentially the same deal. Watch.
Trial. That's the point I'm trying to make. Again, Republicans are screaming, yay, go Trump accountability. Democrats, of course, we're all screaming, oh, this is political retribution. This is a political revenge tour. I understand that. But this is exactly, she opened up a Pandora's box, if you think about it, about bringing cases against people for business fraud and banking fraud.
She campaigned on getting rid of Trump. That was her whole campaign. And he said Tish James will be held accountable. Absolutely, guys. James Comey will be held accountable. Absolutely. And when Michael Cohen admits that you're toast, you're screwed. Lindsey Graham went nuclear on MSNBC when they tried their usual, but what about Trump deflection? His response was pure fire and pure truth about the double standard that's finally ending. Take a look.
Do you think that crosses a line between the Justice Department being independent from the executive branch?
I think our Justice Department, in the hands of Biden, crossed every line there is to cross. I think within 3 days of announcing he was going to run for president in 2024, he did that in 2022.
But what about Trump? What about Trump?
Now, I think the grand jury's going to take care of this, but you didn't care any about this. You didn't care that Letitia James made up charges that no one's ever faced.
But Senator Biden never
charges no one ever
Trump
faced.
To be indicted.
He had Biden regretted that they didn't do it before the election. Jack Smith surveilled my records and 8 other senators. Jack Smith introduced his brief against Trump October the 24th before the 2024 election, violating every protocol just to politicize the election. So this may bother you that people are being held accountable. It doesn't bother me one damn bit.
This doesn't bother you that people are being held accountable. It doesn't bother me one damn bit. The days of selective justice are over, but the real atom bomb dropped when investigative journalists connected all the dots. And watch this explosive segment revealing Crossfire Hurricane as the biggest scandal in U.S. history. Obama, Biden, Hillary, they all weaponized the intel agencies to destroy Trump. Watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Comey case, especially with the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, all the Crossfire investigations, I thought at the time those should have been enormous Watergate level stories because it was about surveillance of a major party presidential candidate. Now, I think in conjunction with Arctic frost, you have all these senators who are finally seeing domestic political surveillance has been a major unreported problem in this country for a long time.
Wow. Well, yeah, we just spoke with a senator who was really
affected. Bill Haggerty was tracked, and he said it happened to him 3 times. Mike, is all of this connected? We've been covering, obviously, the Russia collusion lie for a decade, and it might be well aware that it was fake from day one. But do you think this is all connected, and is this enough to create a conspiracy charge against Jim Comey and his friends who are part of that cabal?
They all work together to destroy and overthrow the duly elected president of the United States. Whatever he's saying is going to be safe TV saying. They destroyed a presidency over this.
Yeah, those indictments we just saw for Comey and Tish are the appetizer indictments. And the big one, the main course, is going to be the conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241. I've publicly called for this for the last 3+ years since the Mar-a-Lago raid. Remember this with the Russian collusion hoax. The Democrats made this up to help Hillary Clinton's campaign, to cover up her corruption, and to take out presidential candidate Donald Trump. They failed. President Trump went into office, and so they tried to destroy him while he was in office, and they tried to destroy him with the...
And his kids and his friends. They arrested his attorneys even. First time in America. They represented Trump and they arrested his attorneys. It's insane.
Lawfare because he declassified Crossfire Hurricane before he left office the first time.
It's insane. They politicize and weaponize intel agencies and law enforcement to take out their political enemy. That's not hyperbole. That's what happened. And the conspiracy goes deeper. They weren't just spying. They were covering up. And the Mar-a-Lago raid, it was about retrieving evidence of their crimes. Watch this revelation that changes literally everything. Take a look.
And you believe that the Mar-a-Lago raid was also part of it. They were actually looking for the assessment of Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 presidential election. It was declassified. I have it right here. Do you believe that's what they were looking for?
1,000%. And those people who this raid, like Jay Bratz and others, they did this to cover up their own corruption. This is the biggest scandal in American history. They politicized and weaponized intel agencies and law enforcement to take out their political enemy. This is third world stuff. And I would say to these lawfare Democrats, justice is definitely coming.
Matt, this is all pretty extraordinary.
It is, but again, I think we're now finally seeing the perspective on it. I agree with Mr. Davis. This is an enormous story. It should have been an enormous story at the time. It's just that we're finally realizing how serious it was to conduct surveillance of these people and to manufacture intelligence, against a domestic political enemy.
So they did this raid to cover up their own corruption. These hunters became the hunted, and VP Vance put the final nail in their narrative coffin. Unlike Biden's DOJ that prosecuted Trump during an election, this administration is following the law, not politics, and the contrast is devastating. Take a look.
We're driven by the law and the facts of the case. I think if you look at the case, the fact that a far-left grand jury in a far-left area indicted Letitia James and James Comey, if you look at the fact that James Comey obviously lied under oath, Letitia James obviously committed mortgage fraud, what we're doing is letting the law drive the prosecution decisions in the justice. You know who we haven't prosecuted? Joe Biden, or Barack Obama, or Hillary Clinton. Okay, unlike Biden's Department of Justice, Kristen, which actually went after Donald Trump in the midst of an election, we are not doing that. We are letting the law drive these decisions. That's exactly as it should be.
You see how her face looked? She was like, You know who we haven't prosecuted? Joe Biden, Barack Obama, or Hillary Clinton. They're not seeking revenge. They're seeking justice for actual crimes. And this is what Obama's really afraid of. Not authoritarianism, it's accountability. His network weaponized every institution against Trump. They spied, they lied, and they fabricated evidence. They turned America's security apparatus into a political weapon. And now the bills are coming due. Comey lied under oath. James committed fraud. The whole Russia collusion hoax was a criminal conspiracy, and Obama orchestrated it all from his shadow presidency. And that's why he's emerging now, warning about democracy while his co-conspirators are facing indictments. They called it insurance when they did it, and we call it justice now that they're caught. If this truth matters to you, subscribe now. My final thoughts are next. So this matters because we're witnessing the collapse of the most dangerous criminal conspiracy in American history. They used your FBI to spy on political opponents, your CIA to manufacture evidence, and your Department of Justice to prosecute the innocent while protecting the guilty. And Obama's built this machine, and Trump is dismantling it. The panic is real. When Obama warns about authoritarianism, he's not worried about democracy. He's worried about discovery. Every indictment reveals yet another layer, and every testimony exposes another lie. The Russia hoax wasn't just dirty politics. It was an attempted coup using America's security state. So here's my question. Should there be a special prosecutor appointed to investigate the full scope of the Obama administration's weaponization of the intelligence agencies? Yes or no? And let me know in the comments and let your voice be heard. And they thought they destroyed the evidence. They thought they silenced the witnesses, and they thought wrong. Justice isn't coming. It's finally here. So don't forget to show your support and grab the next news gear in the description.